Welcome to the freshman episode of High School Air Bands. Before we get started, go ahead and touch that like button like E.T.'s finger. So I had to think back to my freshman year, and although I can't remember all the bands that performed, there were two that stuck out to me. One was the Ramones, and honestly I can't remember the song they were playing. However, what they did on stage just was burned into my mind. And then of course, Sweet Sensation, Take It While It's Hot. That's where the Latin freestyle crew is really just awesome. So before I start talking about those, there was another event my freshman year that I do remember, and it didn't involve any of the bands per se, but here's what happened. So when I first showed up for the air bands with my friends, and out in the parking lot, there's a group of guys just huddling around. And we're like, hey, let's go check it out. We knew some of them in the group. So as we went there, we noticed there was one guy that he graduated the year before. So our friends were telling us. He was making his way on grounds and getting inside to the auditorium and coming back out, going back in, coming back out. And what he was doing is just causing havoc. But the funny thing is, the cops showed up. And I remember we were talking with him because it was just kind of strange. Like, what are you doing hanging out in high school, man? You graduated. But he must have just been high or whatever. And as we were talking with him, he was just kind of like backing up, you know, crouched. And all of a sudden he took off running and out into the dark of the school parking lot. And of course, we looked around and we see the cops show up, right? Somebody called the cops on this guy. So all we hear in the darkness is like somebody landed on a chain link fence, you know, ching, and you can hear him climbing over it. So we're like, all right, this guy's done, okay? Let's go ahead. Let's get back into the auditorium. Let's watch the bands. We were watching a few of the bands go, and then we see him coming inside the auditorium again, and he was running around the floor, and we had some of the ASB folks and some of the faculty who were chasing him, trying to get him out of there. As he was coming towards the end, he ran into our principal, and at the time, our principal, he didn't play around. So they wrestled him to the ground, and our principal just put his foot right on his throat. Not hard, but just basically pin him there and send a message like, hey, you're done here, don't mess with me. We're like, man, our principal's hardcore. So that's what kicked it off, you know, we're like, oh my gosh, you know, how crazy is this gonna be? But then we started rolling into more of the bands, and this is where I remember the Ramones took the stage. Now you got to remember, this is the 80s. So up on stage, you could have any